I'm talking with David Ratcliffe. He's Chairman, President, and CEO of Southern Company. Mr. Ratcliffe, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, here at the IHS Zero Week Conference, so much has been focused on shale gas discoveries and predictions. They're going to change the whole supply situation, maybe hold prices steadier. How are these discoveries affecting your business calculations, if at all?
Early to tell yet, in my judgment. I think the fact that we found additional supplies is good news for the economy and for this nation. The remaining questions that have to be answered are how much, at what price, over what period of time. I think what the supply does is provide a great deal more stability in the pricing, less volatility. If you look backwards at natural gas pricing, we've seen extreme volatility all the way from $3 a million or $2 a million to $14 a million BTU. The additional supply in the form of shale gas will help minimize that volatility. But still you have questions about long-term supplies for the kind of assets that we're looking at.
Well, you are a major coal consumer right now. What are your expectations going forward for carbon capture and storage? Do you see that technology becoming commercially practical?
Well, I think it will. Now, when I say that, let me be clear. The capture part of that is, I think, the easiest part, because that's the technology about how do we actually capture it. The hard questions to be answered are storage or sequestration. So we still have to define what the regulatory regime and the liability regimes will be around storage and sequestration. I'm a technology optimist. I believe and in fact the industry, not our industry, but the oil and gas industry has captured CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for years. So I think we can scale up that technology. Now is it reasonable to assume that that will make sense in a retrofit application on a coal plant? Hard to answer that till we get the economics, till we see what it takes. So we're on the front end of this whole dilemma of how do we capture it and what do we do with it.
Okay, and Southern Company is involved in some testing or looking at those questions, right?
Yes. Well, in fact, Southern Company operates the National Carbon Capture Research Center for the Department of Energy in Alabama.
Okay.
The only national center in the entire country.
So you're right at the center of what's
Yes.
going on there. Well, now you were talking about the long time frame for your investments. You have started work under a limited work authorization on a new nuclear unit at the Vogtle plant, and you're looking at bringing the first unit online in 2016, I believe. Tell me where the work stands, and really the big question people raise: what gives you confidence that you can bring that work in on schedule?
Well, we began the licensing process, gosh, probably in 2005 or 6, with the application for an early site permit. As you said, we were granted an early site permit that allows us to do limited work on the site. We can do excavation for the reactors. We can do concrete batch plant, circulated water piping, before we get an actual construction and operating license, which is the next phase of the permitting process. The NRC will grant that in the last half of next year and sometime in the late part of 11. So we're well underway. I'm confident because we have negotiated a different regulatory process with NRC this time. The idea is that we will actually certify the design and answer all of the questions about the integrity of the design on the front end. Once I get a construction and operating license, then by definition I can build the plant and operate it. Last time we did this, we began construction, we changed the rules in the middle of the process, so the licensing went on as we were building and it changed. That's not the right way to do this. So we decided as an industry, with the NRC's help, that we should certify the design, and assuming that we build it according to that certified design, then we have the right to operate. Okay. So it will be a matter of construction management at that point.
Well, now you're really getting this work underway just going through a recession. An awful lot of other companies are putting capital projects on hold. You know, what enables you to keep going forward on I believe it's a $14 billion project?
Well, remember, ours is a long-term business. We have to plan well in advance of the actual need of the asset. And remember, this is an asset that will come online in 2016, not next year, but 2016. So in order to meet that date, I have to continue to construct. I believe that even with the economic recession we've been in, we will recover, we have in the past, and as we do, we'll see increased demand for electricity. We believe that this asset will allow us a great deal of flexibility with how we meet that increased demand, particularly as it relates to base load needs.
Okay. Now, you were credited with helping, when you were chairman of EEI, with helping EEI craft a compromise within the industry for standards that would enable you to support federal carbon legislation. There have been so many changes up on the Hill. What are you hoping to see comes out of there?
Well, we did work very hard in anticipation of a change in the administration to get our plan in place, if you will, as an industry. I happen to be the chair of EEI at the time. We worked out a set of principles that we think should guide the discussions and the actual policy as it's finalized about climate change. That was very helpful to us as we began to deal with the House debate on Waxman-Markey. We said after Waxman-Markey passed that it made a step in the right direction, but it was not far enough, and it did not provide enough customer protection in terms of pricing. And we would work on the Senate side to try to make it better. We have probably 10 or 15 different principles, things like appropriate guarantee of allowances, emission allowances in a cap and trade regime. The benefit of those allowances going to our customers, not to the shareholders, but to the customers. Allocations of those across the entire sector, including merchant power, price collars, offsets being available to us, reasonable targets and timetables for reductions that are informed by technology that will allow us to actually achieve those. There are numerous other provisions that we tried to incorporate in the legislation, and we were not totally successful. That's why we said it needs to get better on the Senate side. So far, it has not gotten better on the Senate side. And in the interim, what we've seen is obviously tremendous political debates around health care that have created difficulty in moving any legislation that's complex and difficult.
Okay. Well, have you been talking to people on the Senate side? Do you have some hope that they'll get something out, or is it just
We've never stopped talking to people on the Senate or the House side, and that's part of our responsibility as an industry to continue to inform the policymakers about the impact. And I think our success over the last 2 or 3 years is have them understand how difficult this is going to be and how expensive it's going to be. And that's why you see it bogging down, so to speak, in terms of the enthusiasm, because you look at the economic reality we face and doing something that's going to cost even more to this economy. We should be very thoughtful and deliberate about that. I believe it's going to be hard in this political reality to move complex legislation forward.
Okay. David Ratcliffe, Chairman, President, and CEO of Southern Company. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.